questions on the part of the council or the administration? Hearing none, I would invite anybody to step forward. I am going to ask, I don't know how many people are here that want to speak, but I'm going to ask that folks try to limit their comments to about 4 minutes, and the clerk is going to assist me in keeping track of the time, so that you know when we're closing in on 4 minutes.
Mr. President, the normal process is to ask town council, and then we'll have the planning board ask questions of themselves, and then people can come up and speak to both. Joint.
Okay. So,
Public hearing before the planning board, does anyone have any questions to or points of view to present on this subject to the planning?
No, ask them.
Or ask the planning board members any questions?
okay, so again, if anybody would step forward, offer any comment.
Also, 171 Sales Hill Road, I admit I'm confused. I don't know what this happened.
Mr. Soers, I'll be the first councilman to admit, I don't know what's quite going on here myself, and I've been around for a long time.
So is this where I can express my views about the change from residential to business highway of the parcel of land, plat 17, lot 4? Yes, okay, which I was denied a little while ago.
I'm not sure we're there. Excuse me for speaking, Mr. President. I asked Mr. Erickson, do we have to approve a potential lot line change, to change the zone map? And he said we can continue. Do we have to change? My concern is that by doing this, we're giving credibility to the applicant's application. And I don't know that I'm ready to do that.
No, the issue tonight is, do you want to hold a public hearing on this? And you can then continue the public hearing if you don't want to make a decision tonight, which is fine, okay? This I'll be the first to admit, is an arcane section of the law, and I wish that Supreme Court decision had never happened. But because it did, there is that much space for somebody to challenge us on the basis that, you know, it may not be consistent with the Supreme Court opinion. I don't think the Supreme Court opinion applies here, but, you know, that's life. The important thing is to have a public hearing where people can express their concerns, and Mr. Soers is absolutely correct. We can discuss the problems of changing from BH to RS, because that's what's being considered for the comprehensive plan.
Can I ask another question, Mr. Erickson? When the planning board takes a look at changing zones, how deep, what is the breadth and what is the depth of changing a zone? Is that taken into account? Can you go X amount of linear feet? Can you go so deep? I mean, what is some of the...
That's a good point. Most towns have a mix of number of feet setback from the road and a mix of go to the end of the lot line. Okay. Now, in this case, there is no established rule about what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. If you go to some towns, they go back 2,000 feet here and 200 feet here, and they'll hop all back and forth based on what the previous land use was. You try to basically capture the land use that's there. So, no, there's no hard and fast rule about how far back you can go or how jagged it can be or whatever. That's really not an issue that makes any difference, except if you want to establish some rule of thumb about what it should be, that's fine too. Does that answer the question?
So if we have no established policy, it doesn't make me insecure in my decision making this evening, that's for sure.
Well, historically, that's the way it's been.
Existing land uses, and I've heard this bandied around before, it is consistent with existing land uses out there. That's one of those catch-all phrases, I mean, they've done it before, let's do it again.
No, what that means is that if there's a land use that's pre-existing non-conforming in that location, then it's a good policy to make it part of the zone so that it's no longer pre-existing and non-conforming.
Yeah, I'm not talking pre-existing,
All
I'm
right.
talking about it is consistent with current land uses over there.
Then the question is, when you do rezoning between zones, do you treat the expansion of business highway, for example, with serious restrictions or appropriate transitional restrictions so that it is not a pure BH going up against an RS-40, that it is in fact a BH that is severely limited in terms of what can be done. Let me point out that as the plan appears now, that showroom, that new showroom can be built with no question. That's not even an issue. The issue really boils down to, can you use the area behind the building or behind that lot as parking? Right? Leave out the closed parking for construction vehicles at the corner of it. You know, if you just took that out, you'd have what can happen with what could happen in addition. And that transitional zoning is the concept that not many towns grasp. And I think this town council and previous town councils have been very astute in determining what the limit should be.
And there's a distinction between speaking during this portion versus speaking during the previous one that was required to have stenographer. But it doesn't change what you have to say.
All right. Am I up now?
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Sorensen, I just have a-
Okay. Well, I do have a presentation, and I don't have a projector, so I'm going to have to pass something out so you can follow along, okay? And I'm going to discuss exactly what Mr. Walensky was referring to. How much is too much? Okay, when you look at this little blurb that appeared in the newspaper, it doesn't really show you much. And when you see the projections that the applicant has put on the screen, you're just looking at his piece. Please, the second page is the second thing that I want to discuss. Right now, if you would please focus on the map. Those are two separate issues. So I think it's important to look at this in the perspective of the whole zone. So what I've given you there is a map from lot 17. And as you can see, the yellow highlight is the current business highway zone. And you can also see that currently, Anchor Subaru extends much further than its adjacent business zone properties. The only other business zone that goes back as far as Anchor currently does, and you can see that the others go back 200 or 300 feet, Anchor already goes back almost 700 feet. Going south on Route 146, you can see the area of the drive-in theater. That goes back 700 feet. But I maintain that that is different in this way. The western end of the theater borders on a road. It doesn't back up to people's yards. I think that's an important difference. Plus, the theater has been there, what, 40 years, 50 years? There were no homes behind it when that was zoned business highway. So you weren't interfering with anyone and their quality of life and traffic issues and everything else that you've already heard. So, I personally believe that it would be a travesty and an injustice to the neighborhood to extend this business highway zone to the back of people's yards, and then Anchor Subaru's business area would go back 1,000 feet to the west of 146, where nothing else goes beyond 200 or 300 other than the drive-in, and I've already explained the difference there. And then if you look at the pink outline that I've added to the current business highway zone. Just look at it, it's an abomination, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't care what anybody says. It doesn't make any sense that you should zigzag it like that and come into a residential neighborhood. When these people bought these houses on Sales Hill Road, they knew, or they were certain, that there was a residential area behind it. Now you're changing the whole aspect of why these people live where they do. You can't say that with the drive-in. There was nothing behind the drive-in when they built it except woods. Chamberlain Court was built afterwards. So if somebody decided to buy a house on Chamberlain Court, they knew what they were in for. They knew the drive-in kid who was there. This is just an injustice. Okay. Page 2. This is a copy of a page from the comprehensive plan. On the land use. Number 4, prevent incompatible non-residential uses in residential neighborhoods. It's pretty plain. A, under 4, all zone changes hereinafter proposed shall be in accordance with the recommendations of this comprehensive plan, as it may be amended from time to time. A residential area change to a non-residential use shall be supported by findings that the use will be compatible with and supportive of the surrounding neighborhood. Wow, that says it all. I have attended every meeting regarding this application. I was here the night of the snowstorm. I was here the evening when the school department antics hijacked the meeting. And I'm here again. Now, I have not heard one shred of evidence of any findings that this change will be compatible with and supportive of the surrounding neighborhood. I say it's just the opposite. You've heard all of the neighborhood people complain that, okay, blasting may be off the table. All right, let's forget that one. You've got the traffic issue, you've got the noise issue, you've got the lighting issue, you've got the quality of life issue, and the devaluation of property. And by the way, that will reduce the tax revenue. If property values go down, you're going to collect less taxes. Keep that in mind. You may gain something from this expansion, but you may lose on the other end. It could be a wash. So that shouldn't be a consideration. I firmly believe that the comprehensive plan prohibits this. And it would be a direct violation of the comprehensive plan for you to approve this application. I just can't see it any other way. It's right there in plain English. You don't need to be an attorney to interpret that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, we're going to have a lot of time for other folks. I'm just wondering, when we've heard something, does it make sense to have some dialogue with the planning board on what we just heard? In terms of I believe the planning board has already taken a vote of consistency with the comprehensive plan.
Correct.
And is there anything that you feel you want to respond to with respect to this section of the comprehensive plan? Was there something else that...
I don't mean to speak for other members of the board, but as the vote was taken for the planning board on this particular issue, and finding that it was in compliance with the comprehensive plan, part of it that is key, I think, is this idea of a transition from BH and how much of a transition piece would be there to be able to buffer the residential and not be abutting directly to Wilkinson's Highway. And that is in the comprehensive plan as one of the suggested zone changes. Being as it was suggested, therefore found that it was in compliance with the plan.
And is there a different portion of the comprehensive plan that talked about that, what you just described?
Where it lists all the recommended zone changes that would occur. And this particular one was number 63.
So to the question of findings, can you describe...
To the question of findings, the planning board is generally considered even if it's not written in the book, as many towns do. The planning board is really the final arbiter of what the comprehensive plan means. And in this case, the planning board followed very strictly the instruction that they provide actual citations and reasons for consistency. And that they did, and what came to you has a number of references to economic development issues. They recognized, I think correctly, that the transitional nature of the zone was the key to making it work. And I think they're very much aware of the role of buffering, visual buffering, between the uses. So that was done, I think, correctly. I think there's always for and against in a comprehensive plan, but the idea is to find what, on balance, creates consistency of the plan. And that's why the planning board is normally considered the arbiter of what it actually means. Thank you.
Question?
Yes.
Should I direct questions to Mr. Erickson or to the planning board in general? Okay, anybody, please feel free. We have a plat map here, and it shows lot 14. Currently, is that property all undeveloped? Is that being used for anything right now?
I would say at least 95% of it is not being used. They do have permissions from a previous plan to put in more parking than they have currently done today. And they would have, with the location of the building that they're showing, they would have the ability to do a new administrative subdivision to change the lines around that building. Right now, it's sort of sitting on a cluster of lots that looks something like our middle school setup. But they would have the ability to do administrative subdivision, to wrap that building so it has all the setbacks front, back, and rear. And the rear setback, as long as it was empty, could go into the RS zone, because it wouldn't be a use, it would just be a setback. So the real issue is paving of the area behind that. And if you look at the salt tank, the salt shed, that gray salt shed up in the hill, that's about where the corner of the new proposed showroom and work facility would be located.
Okay, so 95% of this property is being used as a neighborhood property, correct?
It's
The other 5%?
It's RS. I don't know whether there's any infringement or encroachment on that actual land, but by and large, it's second growth forest there.
Okay. So when you talk about administrative lot line changes so that it can encompass or wrap around the building, when one does an administrative lot line change, the change of zone does not go with it. You're not going to actually change something from RS to business neighborhood, or business highway.
No. However, if the only use behind the building is for setback purposes, that is not a use, it's a setback. So that has been the standard procedure, and I think the correct procedure in town for a long time. In fact, in some cases, the zoning official has gone farther and declared that whatever the zone is in front of the lot is what the entire lot is zoned for. I have suggested strongly that that not be the case here, because that would not hold up the need for it. I think we agree on that.
So I have to ask Mr. Burnett. Mr. Burnett, can I ask Mr. Burnett a question? Please. Mr. Burnett, you're probably most familiar with lot 14, that's your property, correct, sir? Do you have any secondary uses on that lot right now? Is that lot being used for anything?
I don't believe there's any.
You don't believe, do you know?
The only thing I'm not sure about is the salt shed, if that happens to be parked there, but for all intents and purposes.
Because our zoning prohibits any second, you must have a primary use on a lot before you can have a secondary. If that salt is there, I believe that may be a violation of our zoning. So I don't know.
I don't believe that is, I think that's on the existing
I don't know
property,
if it is
not
or
the
isn't.
RS.
All right, it's just a point that we might want to look at. It's nothing that we should spend a lot of time on.
When I said encroachment, I just didn't want people to say, oh, well, there's a back end of a vehicle that hangs over the edge.
Something attached to the ground. Okay.
So what you,
Mr. President, I'm so sorry. I get caught up in the moment. Can I ask another question? Thank you. To the planning board, number 63, RS 40 to Business Highway, land behind the auto dealership. The last statement in here requires appropriate transitional restriction. What is an appropriate transitional restriction? I don't think we've answered that.
Well, I can tell you that it would be whatever satisfies all parties. And if you can't satisfy all parties, then you can't have appropriate transitional restrictions. Whatever is appropriate to all parties makes a set of restrictions. For example, they've talked about, they want a larger buffer than has been provided. The question is, and ultimately it's the town council that considers, whether it's appropriate or not. But it doesn't satisfy as many people as possible.
Thank you. Thank you.
so I want to provide enough time for anybody who wants to speak on this issue to be able to speak on this issue. And again, just ask that if you can focus on new information, something that hasn't been said, and that you can try to contain your remarks to about 4 minutes. I appreciate that.
Michael Thompson, 152 Sarasville Road. I'm kind of with Mr. Soares, I'm a little confused on this, so I'm not even sure if I'm really speaking on the issue, and I hope that if I do go astray, point me in my chair, I'll go sit down. One of our concerns about this zoning change and concerns that have arisen, I hope you understand, last time you put a question to me, and I apologize for not answering it as well as I probably should have. One of the concerns that we had about this was because, as I let you believe and you clarified last time, we had thought this was a done deal. We had had a number of meetings. I apologize, I haven't been to all of them. I've only been to the last couple that have been here. So I speak only from what I've understood from the last few meetings, and that's why the change in my disposition was because initially we had been led to believe by a lawyer that we had no choices, that all we were was just bending and bowing to what was already a done deal. So again, that was the change in my, now I understand that there are things that we can do. That's why we kind of got our dander up and we're trying to look for ways to say that, we don't want to make concessions. We don't want to have to allow 3,500 or whatever. We want the zoning board and the town council to just say, no, we don't want this changed. We don't want them to change the comprehensive plan to allow it to be changed, partly because we see future things coming down the road. I know Mr. Benoit spoke at the last meeting and said that his suppliers are demanding that he expand. So he's trying to rezone this to expand this area. 5 years from now, if they demand him to expand again, where does he go? There's no more room left there that I understand except for our houses. And I know I'm not selling, so he's not going to be in my house. If he can't expand, at that point, he's already threatened at the last meeting to leave if he can't get what he wants and move somewhere else. So in 5 years from now, after you approve this, or if it does get approved by the zoning and the town council, if they again come back and say, now you're too small again, now you need to expand again, or now the Nissan dealer needs to expand, are they going to be behind the Sunoco station across Sayers Hill? Are they going to be? The other question I had is, I know there's some property in question that is not purchased yet by him. Is that property included in the zoning or the rezoning? And if not, if that property is purchased after this is rezoned, are we going to be back here again to rezone the area that is not owned by him?
I can't answer that question, but perhaps the town planner can.
I guess those are my major issues today. Is that I wanted to kind of understand where we stand, because like I said, I know that there's some areas that haven't been purchased yet or in the plannings to be purchased, but if those aren't included in the rezoning and they're within that area that's going to be used, is that an issue that we're going to have to take up in another look at? Are we going to be back here again doing it for a small parcel plan? That's something I'd like to know ahead of time, because I don't want to waste your guys' time or our time if it's it's something that's gonna be brought back here again. And again, like you, I don't wanna, at this point, I don't wanna facilitate and say, yes, we can change the comprehensive plan to allow this. If we can stop it now and just say, no, we don't want the comprehensive plan to change, then we eliminate the need for a lot more meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perhaps I could ask Kathleen to respond to that question of the property that has not yet been purchased.
There is a piece of property between the dealership and Sales Hill Road. Interesting enough, it made the final cut of the comprehensive plan last time for changing to DH. And if the process of automobile dealerships continues, that could very well be an option. And again, people will participate in consideration of it. I would anticipate that if that were changed, there would be a very significant buffer along Sales Hill Road, and that would not be an ingress or egress there. But all those things are possible within the system. It's also possible that any dealer could split into two nearby locations. The drive-in won't be there forever. It's probably the last one around, right? And, with the country and western zones, there's a drive-in that changed to Walmart. And there was one in Dartmouth where it did change to a Walmart. But there's always something that will follow a drive-in. And that land is prime because it is already imperviously covered for a very large percentage. And anybody who came there would simply have to equal or reduce slightly to be a town hero. So I would think the drive-in would be a more likely location for future expansion, but you never know. It's unfortunate that things, businesses can't stay static in terms of their size. Does that answer the question?
I still don't know which lot was talked about for being purchased. Was it, Bob, do you have a copy of it? Is it 199? I don't know who owns 199.
Yeah, 199 was the one that made the final cut just before the comprehensive plan as a candidate for changing to DH.
And that's owned by whom, do we know? Mr. Donald's property?
No.
Tiller?
Married to the
Mary Tiller? And this map, number 15, lot 15, that's a residential home right now? Can you see the map?
I don't know offhand.
Yes, it is.
It is residential? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak at this time?
Sean Kelly, 195 Sunset Road. I've spoken before in all the other meetings, and like Mrs. Zelinski this evening, seems like an end around to me in terms of you pass this and now suddenly they have a caveat to go forward with, well, town council already said that we could change it to DH, now we just gotta get it changed to DH. Just something for me, I'm not an attorney, I'm just a school teacher, but it sounds like an end around to me. Thank you.
I want to make it clear that this cannot be considered an end around. It merely opens it up as an option only in relation to a Supreme Court case that probably does not apply to this case. And therefore, if it is changed, it means that is an option and you don't have to do it. One does not have to follow the other. If, in fact, you choose not to do it, it does not preclude going ahead because the planning board has already found it consistent with the comprehensive plan. It just leaves that much possibility open. And I think that that Supreme Court case does not apply.
Ma'am?
Rachel Savoy, 138 Sales Hill. I really wish he would move to the drive-in. You know, we've got all sorts of questions, but one of the questions that I have is Bob Benoit, why is he rezoning this? And he said that it was because it was required. You know, the dealership is already huge, and he has 12.5 acres of commercial property already, which most of it is buildable. With that, he is required, if he's required to build a larger dealership building, he certainly has enough commercial property to do so. If you approve the rezoning, he'll have over 22 acres of dealership. I mean, that's huge. And this doesn't even include the property behind the gas station. Mr. Benoit spoke of his competitors at the last meeting. He mentioned how he had to be larger to compete with them. Nissan Village in Attleboro has a lot size of 4.74 acres. Their 33,000 square foot dealership is not set back on a property as Anchor has in its plans, but it sits very close to the highway and takes up a good portion of their lot. His other competitor, Subaru dealership, also in Attleboro, is currently in the process of being built. It's not much larger than the Nissan Village in size. Their building is huge, and again, it sits close to the highway, taking up most of the lot. I think you would be surprised to see how much smaller their dealerships are compared to what he already has. The existing two dealerships that Anchor has are huge compared to his competitors. And anyone here who spoke or will speak in agreement to this expansion are not personally affected. So they really don't care. We do. Before you vote yes to the rezoning, please ask yourselves, does he really need to take 10 plus acres of residential land, which will change our neighborhood forever, in order to meet his requirements? I don't believe it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick Martin, 77 Sales Hill. I've spoken at a couple of meetings previously. I'm not sure I understand exactly what this map represents. There's no streets, a bunch of numbers and some shapes. To that, I have questions about it. This is the proposed rezoning, correct?
That is the same lot that would be rezoned.
Well, all of this is in a new comprehensive plan, or?
This is already on the comprehensive plan. This is the only one question for the change. Now, I said before, I didn't do this map. I would not have done a map like this. It is very difficult to read, and on the back, with 63, there's reference to the 63 on this side.
Yes. When was this originally drawn up?
2006.
2006, this comprehensive plan with this map minus this
Minus
piece.
that.
Why are we revisiting this now?
Because we have a proposal before the planning board and before the town council for zoning change.
So a proposal brought by anyone generates a change to the comprehensive plan of our entire town? One business can generate the comprehensive plan being changed?
Anybody who comes before the town council with a proposed zoning change can ask to have it done. And then we have public hearings, and then the town council makes a decision on whether it should be done and with what restrictions. So yes, anybody who makes a proposal to the town council will be heard.
I'm confused on something. This map represents the comprehensive plan, the direction our town wants to go, correct?
This is an inset of the comprehensive plan, proposed zoning district changes. Okay? Doesn't say proposed. Doesn't say proposed, although it should. We just copied what was there. These are scattered all around town. There are 62 of them. We have processed 4, turned down 3, and passed 1. Okay? So the rate of passing is unspectacular. If this is changed on the map, it does not necessarily mean that it has to be changed as a zoning change, right? And this is a technical issue related only to a Supreme Court decision in 2011. You know, I would rather not have to deal with it, but that's the way the case law has developed in Rhode Island. It's all changed, I think, this year.
Is there something with the street safety?
Nope. Nope. Again, I would not have done this myself, but.
Mr. Murray may be able to see some of these.
You want?
Oh, yeah, this one.
Here's D2, that's what it looks like. Right there, just shades of lot lines. Again, not my choice.
Thank you. So, and just to wrap it up, to finish my 4+ minutes then, if I understand correctly, 63 on this map wasn't part of the original comprehensive plan, which was just recently added to it for this purpose. To surmise why we're putting it on and what it doesn't need to be, it was also said that it doesn't need to be a vote in the original comprehensive plan to reflect this. Why do it then? Not taking a vote on it or saying, no, we're not changing it, would at least change, in my mind, the air of impropriety or a slightly skewed point of view, because this was done in 2006. Why are we revisiting it now when a business wants to change something? I don't think it'd be revisited if I want to take my residential property and put up a candy store. I don't think that would happen. Thank you.
I want to address the issue of nobody changed the comprehensive plan. Okay? That's why it's here tonight, to change the map. That's your decision and the planning board's decision. You both have to approve it in order for it to be done. And the reason that it's probably not appropriate to vote tonight is that I foresee a significant change in the plan coming forward, probably introduced first on Thursday night, and then we'll follow through in subsequent planning board meetings, and then come back to the town council. But, you know, I don't think the original map was done in a way that truly reflected what the intention was. It was to show future land uses, and it was only marked land uses. And it showed zoning changes when they were proposed zoning changes. So we're dealing with what was history. And this will all be revised again from scratch for March, be finished in March of 2015. We're working on the baseline rewriting now, and we will soon start to have public meetings to discuss different sections of it and have people sign on to participate in the final draft.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this issue?
Little fun of sales over. I wanted to mention quite a bit, but some of the stuff was already mentioned, so there's 2 things I wanted to say. I did want to talk about lot 14, which is right behind the Nissan dealership. And he owns I think it's lot 15, the single-family home there. And he's in the process of buying lot 199, once he gets the okay of this change. I don't have a problem if he buying this residential lot, 199, which is 2.5 acres. If he wants to put a $500,000 home there, be our neighbor and overlook his dealership, that's okay with me. I'm sure that's not what's going to happen. He's going to own all of Sales Hill Road coming up, is going to be all commercialized. Our private country road is going to be turned into a highway. We definitely need to stop this. This is not right. I mean, you've heard many issues, and I wanted to make it across that will happen. He will own all of Sales Hill Road. And I'm sure he's not building his home there. He's not gonna be one of our neighbors, true neighbors. He's gonna go home to Cumberland, to leave us to build a dealership. Thank you.
Question, Mr. President? Somebody else?
Hopefully everybody from the neighborhood is done. I don't live in the neighborhood, so. I came here tonight to hear all the bad news, but
Could you just say your
I'll
name
speak on this
and
issue
address
first.
for the record, though?
My name's Gerald Tifo, I live on Keene Street in North Smithfield. Two comments as a person who goes to meetings and likes to listen to things. Gentleman brought up, I don't recall your name, I'm sorry.
All source.
You had an article from the North Smithfield Comprehensive Plan 5-year update. I'm looking at number 4, prevent incompatible non-residential uses in residential neighborhoods. I wouldn't want it in my backyard. I don't live anywhere near this place. The second issue I think he brought up, I hope the town council looks at, if you do build this, let this be built. The tax appreciation of the houses in the back are going to go down. And what do we do for 5 years and 10 years? Not just overnight, but in a period of time, what are we losing? There's something I would want to consider as a board member. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may. Bob? Bob?
Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
We have this map, I know you didn't draw it, you made it clear, and it also lists out the proposed uses where, when I look at this map, I see number 51, which is going from, proposed to go from existing RS 40 to proposed RE 65. I look across 146, I see 47. Existing RA 65, some RS 40, proposed to go to REA 120. I see the property in question. It's plat, this is plat 17, number 14, it's identified as 63. I look south of that and I see number 52, which is existing RA proposed to go to REA. Everywhere around this one spot map zone change is being proposed to protect the water sources over there. That's the way I look at it. Been around for a while, I've made mistakes. But we're going from smaller lot size to larger lot size because we have concern about the water supply over there. Why are we just looking at one map lot line change this evening?
To answer the first question, the lots are being downzoned, or the comprehensive plan proposed that they be downzoned, because that is a surface watershed. It actually protects the reservoir in Smithfield, not in Socket or North Smithfield.
I have to disagree with you on that. The water supply. We have neighborhoods that over there are already contaminated with MBT, with contaminants from gasoline stations. They have to use bottled water. I might grant that lot 52 might be a little bit more, but that water goes into the Woonsocket water system. That's where it goes.
Down by the brook there, part of that does drain that way. I don't have the protection map in front of me, but the watershed for the Smithfield runs right through there, maybe part of 47 in, part of 47 out. The point is that you make a good point. If that is anybody's watershed, whether it's ours or Smithfield's, it should be protected.
Yes.
Okay? Now, one of the requirements of any development here would be to go no more than 40% impervious cover, which means they would have to use porous asphalt. Does it make sense for the town, for example, to buy the drive-in and remove all that asphalt? Might. The federal government did it for Lonsdale Drive-in in Lincoln. It depends where your priorities are. And sometimes, in the planning board situation, in writing that ordinance to protect the watershed, they gave 40% lot coverage to commercial and manufacturing, and restricted the residential to anywhere between 5 and 25% based on the lot size. So it's a process where you come out overall to an acceptable end, but it may not make sense in terms of individual juxtaposition of lots.
Sir?
How you doing, council members? My name is James Carey. I reside at 119 Sales Hill Road. Been there for 11 years, and I also own property at 111 and 117 Sales Hill Road. I guess I walked in after you spoke about the blasting issue, that I guess there's going to be another way to approach the blasting situation. Just wanted to reflect on some of the, like Lou Funoff said, with the traffic. If you ever been down Sales Hill Road and you're coming through Sunoco and Subaru, it's a very small lane there. Over the winter months, I've seen it turn into one lane. Suicide. People waiting here to go across the highway are blocking that lane, so people that are coming off the northbound side to take a left in Sales Hill Road have no place to go until that car exits. And it can get pretty ugly. And I also noticed that along 0.2 miles of Sales Hill, of Subaru on 146, there's 5 open entryways that used to be entrances or exits to Subaru, and they're abandoned. There's now a wall in front of them. And I'd just like to know why a lot of these things weren't addressed before they just abandoned all these entryways. Maybe I'm thinking that our hill, Sales Hill Road, will be the new exit from Subaru, and that shouldn't be the case because it just can't accommodate it. And I'd like to see it stay rural like everybody else. It's a nice place to live, been there for a while. My dad lives there as well. I built his house in 2001. He was here last week. He's got some cracks in his foundation that weren't there prior to the blasting. And Mr. Benoit seems to think that he said to me that there's, you know, he cut me a check. Well, as of today, there's been no check. So, and the way our meeting went with Mr. Subaru, when I went to see him that day, he gained a whole lot of notoriety from me because of his choice of words. But, you know, the way I see it, no blasting. There's other methods to go forward with. You put a hammer on the end of excavators, drill holes and fracture the rock. Don't need to do any more blasting. I think, as you all know, that the MTB, the amounts of benzene was 600 times the amounts they should have been back in the day. So perhaps it's time for a site review from the state of Rhode Island to see what's going on down there before any blasting should take place, because it is a concern. And hopefully that is the case. There'll be no more blasting, because it's crazy. There's over 40 wells in the immediate area. And for a guy to be setting off explosives on a hillside that we reside on top of is crazy. It doesn't make any sense. And the fact that we don't have any water infrastructure or water line servicing Sales Hill Road, and should these wells go dry, we're bumming. We're all living in homes without any water. So blasting should definitely be out of the question. And we should definitely look at the entryway to Sales Hill Road before they stop putting more entrances or exits on that hill section. People get stuck over the winter months. It wasn't designed to service a commercial business, so I'm not exactly for the expansion of a change in the zoning. That's my opinion. Thanks for listening. Have a great night. Thank you.
In the interest of time, I'm sensing that even from the comments of the planner, that the actual comprehensive plan map amendment, the amendment to the comprehensive plan may not even be something that's necessary. And so,
Answer that yes or no, would you please?
well, I've heard it explained twice.
Yes or no? Does it have to be amended?
Well, I don't think that he's giving a legal opinion. He's saying that it was
Yes or no?
There is no yes or no. There appears to be that much space left by not dealing with this. And if the applicant wants it dealt with, then it should be dealt with. The question of whether it's this much or this much still remains on the table. It's your choice. If you decide you don't want to continue this, or you don't want to go any farther, I'm just here as a broker, okay? I don't have any part in this other than trying to get a civil discourse.
Bob, I'm not attacking you, I get that.
I live in Lincoln. I know where Anchor Super would go in Lincoln. I know where we're going in Smithfield, all right? So I don't want to do anything other than explain that it's that much of a vulnerability not being used.
I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to rush this process, but by the same token, I don't want to be hung up on something that is not considered necessary.
Well, continue, if you continue it and it turns out not to be necessary for other reasons, that's fine, but I don't think we need to prolong it tonight. And I don't think the planning board needs to prolong it tonight.
Is there a motion to continue this to the same evening that we're going to have the other items for Anchor Super, which is on the 5th? I don't hear anything, so unless there's a motion otherwise, I'm inclined to close this item and move on to the next item.
You take that vote, then we'll take the vote for the thing. Then we'll take the.
Okay, well, there's no vote to take, we're going to just move on to the next item. There's no motions.
Well, we also have an open meeting right now.
Correct.
They have an open meeting, they just have to continue the hearing to March 20th.
Okay.
Mr. President, if I is not voting, this is it, and it's correct? As far as moving the map
Unless it's been continued to a date certain.
nobody made that motion.
There's no
Public
motion at
hearing
all.
would end, and then somebody would have to bring it back up and have a new public hearing
Right.
and everything else.
Advertising and so forth.
Right.
I mean, seriously, if you want to continue it, fine. It's a couple $1,000 to do one of these, and that's why we have a joint hearing tonight.
So there's no motion to continue it, and there's no other motion, so I'm trying to keep our business moving.
All right, that's fine.
So I'd like to defer to the planning board so they can conduct whatever business they need to in order to adjourn. We're just taking a recess while the planning board's.
We're all set?
You're all set, planning board's all set?
Mr. President, the planning board moved to make this matter continue to the 20th, I guess, for further consideration and recommendation of the council. I would ask that the council continue this to the 5th on their agenda, so it doesn't stay consistent with the other map.
I'll ask again if there's a motion to continue this to May 5th. Hearing no motion, this is currently resolved to the council.
And for the record, Mr. President, that's item 4, amendment to North Smithfield Comprehensive Plan Map D1 and D2 to allow plat 17 lot 14 to be changed from RS to BH with appropriate transitional restrictions. That, the motion was made to continue that.
Thank you to the planning board for your presence tonight. And we're going to move on to item number 6, which is discussion by council vote of action on presentation of the fiscal 2013